Hey everyone, my name is Nathan Payne. Welcome to another episode of Coffee and Crypto. We have special guest Miles, head of research at Blu Ocean Games Guild,
Hello.
with us. Most common guest on the show, but
No,
absolutely love
I
having
really
you
love
here.
having myself. I like being here. So
Just great sharing your expertise
I'll
with
always
everyone.
say yes.
Right on, appreciate that. So today we're going to talk about Big Time, which is
Ooh, I
a
love
title
this game.
that, oh my god, so good, right? Our game guild just jumped headfirst in. We basically loaded everybody up with one of the passes, and we've been playing it nonstop.
Yeah.
So why don't you kind
Me
of take it
especially.
away? How do you get started? Yeah, you especially. What kind of game is it, and what were some of your initial thoughts when you first played?
So Big Time to me is what I would call a traditional MMORPG. It has all of the sort of traditional tenets that an MMORPG has. A good example of that would be like a chat structure. For example, you can have zone chat and then global chat and then party chat and then a chat for whatever guild structure there might be. There is a guild structure in the game so that people can organize. You start. The game is very party focused, which a lot of MMORPGs are, but they don't explicitly say it. You know what I mean? It's a game that you can play alone, but you're gonna have a better experience if you're in a party. And the reason why that is because the game really thrives on party dynamics, just like most traditional MMORPGs do. Think
Makes
like
sense.
World of Warcraft or Guild Wars is another good example of a game that's like that. Now it's in its very early alpha stages, so right now you can really only do like four man, I guess, instances, and then as I understand it, there are like raids with more than, or I guess it's 6 men, isn't it?
Six, yeah.
6 man, and then there's raids with more than 6 people that you can do eventually, but I haven't gotten to that level yet.
Yeah,
I'm
and I
sort
was
of-
told roughly it's like past level 30. Kind
yeah,
of thing.
I'm just about to. I'm sort of in the like 20 to 30 range with the other guys right now, and we're still doing like the high level 6 man things.
Nice.
And so right now, I mean, the storyline isn't as rich as because they haven't finished developing yet, but I've seen some of the assets for the different timelines, basically that you do battle in when you're in these rifts, and it's clear to me that the storyline for this game really is going to take place across a bunch of different timelines. And there's going to be
That's
like
cool.
there's the group of cyber pirates, and there's these like this insect sort of group that are a group of enemies that are going to be, I'm assuming, their own enemy factions that have their own motives in the story.
Okay.
Now, if we're talking about the actual gameplay of the game, I give this like an 80 or a 90%. And the reason why that is because it is MMORPG gameplay, but it's also nuanced and has sort of, for you, the ability to find items that you can use to customize your character in a way that you like. So, for example, if you want to play the Chronomancer class and you find a nice Chronomancer pocket watch, and you want to play the Chronomancer class in a way where they're more defensive, well, you can find gear that's legendary that gives you more defensive stats. And suddenly,
Okay.
maybe you can choose to be a mage that's an off tank instead of being a mage that's a paper tiger that hides in the corner. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay, so it lets you kind of build. a
Yeah,
little
and
more
then there's an even
flexibly.
further level of customization to that with these pocket watches and pocket watch gears.
Maybe we should explain that first, how that works in switching between
Yeah.
the classes. and
So you
stuff.
have pocket watches, and a pocket watch is basically a character or basically a class that you can level up, and you can get multiple of the same class and multiple of other classes, and they can be different. So a legendary pocket watch might unlock skills in that class's tree that another pocket watch might not unlock. And that other pocket watch might unlock a skill, whether it's a legendary or not, that is a skill that you really need or want to use, and thus it might have more value to you than the legendary one.
And what I found was so cool is you're playing one character, but you can switch between all
Yeah.
these pocket watches.
So yeah, the other thing I was going to say is that because you have multiple pocket watches, you can now choose to level up individual pocket watches as individual sort of setups for a class. So maybe you
This is
might have,
amazing.
yeah, it's really good. I mean, it's the only other game that's been able to do this properly, I think, is like Final Fantasy 14 with their
Yes.
class changing system.
Yeah.
That just means that all of the members of your party can really choose a class that fits the party structure if they need to. So if you need, 2 people to be people who can take damage and 2 people to be people who can do damage, then you can be like, well, what do you guys got for your pocket watches that do damage? And then they'll say, well, I've got this and I've got that, and people will have setups.
It also adds a lot of replayability because
Yeah.
now you're not leveling one
Yeah,
class,
yeah.
making all these alt characters.
And it's actually, yeah, you're not making alts in a sense. You're kind of making alt watches, and you
Yeah.
have the one character, which makes it a lot better because you can centralize everything. Now, the watches themselves are not tradable. As far as I know, you can't trade gear yet, but you can buy and sell it. So I'm sure the infrastructure to trade the gear itself will be implemented soon.
Mhm. Same with crafting. I know right now you can't craft.
Yeah, but that will probably be implemented, and I feel like later on there's also going to be expertises for those things, such as mining and crafting and
Well, from what I know, there's spaces, right? So spaces is kind of like the land NFTs.
Yeah.
And from what I understand, there's different rarities of those spaces, and the different rarity dictates the artisans or blacksmiths. So, for example, say you have a legendary space, you'll be able to craft legendary items.
Right.
So that's kind of the incentive to get these different tiers of land. And then they also talked about how that's going to be the hub for guilds.
Right.
So if you want like your guild treasury, your guild chest will be there. And you can attach multiple spaces to kind of build your zone. And I'm really interested to see how that's going to
The other thing I think is cool is that without space, each member of the game will have their time machine. So if your guild does contain a space, then you'll be able to link your time machine to the guild space.
Yeah, that's so cool.
And things like that. So it's providing this not just technical but physical structure for you to socialize with your guildmates, which is a huge,
a fireside chat.
It's like a really important, yeah, exactly. It's really the fireside chat aspect of MMORPGs of the past is like one of the most important things that promotes people to go outside of their just plain inner circle and meet other people who are playing the game as opposed to just playing with their friends and not anybody else. And as a result of that, that's the reason why you see people often hanging out in towns and why the game is very built towards having full parties, because now it becomes worth it for you to fill your party roster out, even if it's with
like
strangers.
that. I really
And now
like
you
that.
can communicate with those strangers. And now, lots of our MMORPGs in the past have done that, which is why I call this game a traditional MMORPG, but none of them have ever had a cosmetics marketplace that was player-owned, that was crypto-based. And that's the big thing that they're doing with this.
Yeah, the
And,
NFTs.
that's their big question mark that they're doing, is their NFT cosmetics. And it's not just the cosmetics for your character, but it's also the things that you'll use to make in your space, and to make your space could end up being like a beautiful, Victorian living room or something like that from 100 years ago, or it could be something completely
gonna be
different.
cool.
And now the one question mark for me, because I haven't figured this out yet, is where the assets are going to come from. Are players going to create the assets that you use in your space, or is it all going to be the development team?
Good question.
But what I can tell you is that the development team has been really, really hard at work at making new stuff in the game, because I can already see places in the overworld where you can go, and they look pretty good.
Okay. Maybe we can talk a little bit about the community too, because that was what really impressed me. Like going into the Discord, asking questions. They're super on top of being transparent about everything. They're very active in their community.
Well, and I also want to talk about the player response. So
Yes, please.
Here's a game that has several servers across the entire world. And what I find that is happening is the majority of the player base sort of coagulates in Frankfurt. And they're just a bunch of random people from all over the world, but they all get an average ping in Frankfurt. And then they know if they go there that they're going to be able to fill their party out.
Yeah.
And this is a game, like I said many times, that is very, very heavily party-based. So it's really cool to me because
Why is
now...
it so heavy party based?
Well, so there's incentive because the earnings are better, the monster density is bigger,
see,
and
okay.
Things like that
More
make it so
experience.
that you can get more experience, you can get more chances at item drops, you can get more basically everything, and the difficulty does go up, but the game is also more fun when you play together. So being that the dev team knows that, they're trying to incentivize people to
Makes
be
sense.
in parties. And for now, it seems like whenever an NFT drops, or whenever one of the artifact shards drops, which can be used to make NFTs, it's random who gets them.
Okay.
Which
It's
I think
like
is,
a RNG kind of.
I think
dice
so.
roll.
I think it's like a dice rolled behind the scenes type thing that we don't take part in, and I think that's fair.
Me too.
Because and if they don't change it, I wouldn't hurt me. You know what I mean? I'd like to be able to allocate where that goes.
It would be nice
personally.
if the team leader maybe, or
Yeah, the
party
team leader or the party leader could allocate where that goes.
or
but
choose a different type of loot system. Like maybe
Yeah.
they can do random. Maybe they could do the old DKT system from like
Yeah,
World
exactly.
of Warcraft. Have
And
a choice there.
Anyway, I feel like that's coming in the future, and if it doesn't change and it's just random forever, I wouldn't be too mad about it.
it's
Because ultimately, what's happening is that a bunch of people are all coming together in this main town and making parties and hanging out together. And it's like I meet a bunch of people that I don't know every time, and they're like, "Okay, well, let's go here, let's do this," and everybody does their thing, and you can sort of get to know people by the party structure of the game. So I don't know if you ever played a traditional MMORPG. Generally you have like healers and tanks and DPS and different variations of that, and you have to try to take care of your enemies doing damage to you, but also be able to dole out damage to them and keep people safe and all that stuff. And people are all doing that together and not just in their own groups. And that's great because they're going to forge social bonds, which will keep the
Yes.
Just like in World of Warcraft, it was one of the first games where you could just go and hang out in the town in the World of Warcraft.
And
you know
that's
what
why
mean?
I played for
And
so
so
long.
people
It was
would
the-
go and hang out in towns and like get to know
Exactly.
each other, and then these huge completely player-driven guilds would show up, and it was an awesome place to be. So this is a place that's going to be like that. It's clear that it's AAA quality.
Yep.
It's clear that they're going to be doing regular content updates, etc.
And they're leading the space.
And they're not trying to be the best. They're just trying to be the one that's here right now, that has a proper economic system for their cosmetics and whatnot.
But they're leading the way.
Maybe they're leading. That's exactly what they do. They're the pioneers. They're the pioneers.
And they have talked about. There was one other thing. I don't know too much about it other than I heard that they will be implementing tokens where you'll be able to farm tokens from monsters.
Oh, okay.
And in game.
Right.
What that means and what it's going to be used for in the utility, I'm not too sure.
I feel like there might be.
That's going to be interesting.
I don't know of this for sure, but if I'm not mistaken, I remember reading somewhere something about an auction house. So if they do end up doing an auction house in the future, that could, be a really big update. But I'll do some research and maybe we'll have to do Big Time Part 2.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I mean, I feel like what I really like is they gave us something to play. Because the first mover advantage in this space is not something to be underestimated. That's kind of why the clickers did so well. But then people realized,
that's right.
Well, we need something that's fun and engaging. So Big Time, you can tell, like you said, there's undeveloped places. There's places you can kind of see on the map.
Well, and the other thing is, that if the game is undeveloped, that whatever pool of skills and gear that there is now, it's going to expand.
And it's well polished for such a condensed version.
The customizability is pretty impressive. It's a well polished looking game. It doesn't completely destroy your computer, but it does require a pretty hefty computer to play. It does, and
that's a good topic to mention too.
To me, that says that they're actively trying to develop a game that looks nice, that isn't just a game. You know what I mean?
And it's good because I know for a lot of people on our game guild, for example, clickers and stuff like that, anything could run. Big Time was kind of the first one where it was like, okay, we've got to look at everyone's specs.
Hang on a second. This is a real game, and you need a gaming computer. Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
And that's a big thing. And I don't want to say real game and that the other things weren't real games, but the truth is that a game like this is more engaging than a game that is a clicker game or an economy simulation game, because those games take place over a large period of time and are different in nature than an action RPG.
And that's why it's so exciting, because it's something that we can actually dedicate our time to, play together as a group.
Yeah, so now we're
have an enjoyable time.
Basically in the phase where we're trying to find all the coolest NFTs and just explore all of the skills in the game. And what that means for me is that I have to level up I don't have to, but I'm leveling up different classes and finding. So like, for example, I just found a pocket watch for the Quantum Fixer class. And it's the first thing that I've ever seen that says turret. And I'm like, ooh, I always like turrets. So I'm just seriously considering leveling up a Quantum Fixer pocket watch, starting from level 1 and going back up. My rank will still be high, which means I'll still be able to use the high rank pocket watch that I found, but I'll start at level 1. And so I've done that already one time, and the truth is, getting from level 1 back to like level 15, 20, where you're able to, it doesn't take as long as it did the first time.
What's the rank versus level thing? Can you explain
So you have pocket watches which level up on their own, and you can find higher level pocket watches that start with higher stats.
Okay.
But in order to stop people from starting the game from scratch and being dropped a pocket watch that's legendary and suddenly being at an advantage, they implemented a rank system that's basically a leveling up
like your
system.
Master level?
Basically like an EXP system that's independent from your pocket watches.
Okay.
And so as you level up your rank, you're able to use higher rarity and higher tier pocket watches that give you more skills, that have more of those pocket watch gear slots.
I see.
And which are also important because pocket watch gears can give you skills and also give you stats.
Well, that's kind of neat. So leveling up all the classes contribute to your master rank,
that's
which
right.
still unlocks.
So then once you get to like mastery full with your one class that you've played all the time, you're like, well, maybe I want to try the Quantum Fixer class now. Well, now, because you've played the game for so long and you're a high level, it's worth it. The game rewards you by being able to use your high level Quantum Fixer class, maybe at level 1, but right away.
Okay.
As opposed to somebody who hasn't played the game yet, who shouldn't be able to use something like that right at the beginning. Which I think is really, really clever. And then with the actual gears themselves, they just have pocket watch level requirements and obviously stat requirements. So that limits your ability to use super powerful gear right from the beginning.
And that's
just
good
like
because it balances things.
Yeah, just like a traditional RPG, they have their limits in place. Now, at the very, very beginning of the early alpha, those limits were not in place in order to give the early alpha testers the opportunity to really experience the full spectrum of the game.
I see.
And a lot of crypto projects are doing this because they're releasing their MVP. And what an MVP is a minimum viable product. That means that this is the thing at all that functions that we're going to turn into the final product. You know what I mean? And so this early alpha that we're playing is pretty close to a minimum viable product. You can go into rifts. They have different levels. You have different classes with a bunch of different skills and with stats that rise, and difficulty level of the enemies rise. You have parties, and the difficulty level of the enemies and the drops rise as the parties. And the big thing that we have for the NFT holders right now is that while we're playing this early alpha version of the game that is functional and is pretty good but might still be rebalanced, there won't be any resets, and you'll be able to find some cosmetic items before the global release.
Nice.
And I think that's great.
Me too.
Honestly, if I find a full set of like really cool gear just before the global release, and then the global release happens, and it's like the first day of school, and I have the coolest stuff already, that's cool to me. And that's what I call like pure perceived value, and it definitely works because all the other MMORPGs in the space have cosmetics marketplaces that thrive.
Hold on. The next thing I wanted to ask was, or talk a little bit, was the passes, because I found this was kind of interesting, where we got everybody the Jade Pass.
Yeah.
And apparently there's the Ruby, Jade, Silver, Gold. And it does show that depending on your pass, it's going to dictate the amount of loot drops that you can get. And you can even find the spaces as loot.
Well, so it's not necessarily loot drops, but it's the loot drops that are cosmetics or space related. I suppose the NFT drops is really what we're talking about here. So you playing the game with a Jade Pass and somebody else playing with a Ruby Pass, in the distant future, I want to say it's a year, it could be 6 months. I can't remember exactly what the period is. Then the tiers will come into play, and somebody with a Ruby Pass might be able to get better NFT drops than somebody with a Jade Pass.
And what they told me, this was a really
it won't
important
affect
thing.
the actual gameplay, which is super important.
True, but I asked them in the server, I was like, hey, if we want to upgrade from a Jade Pass to a Gold, is that possible? And they were like, no. Once you burn the pass, that's locked in
It's
with
when it becomes
your wallet.
installed to your wallet.
I was like, oh, interesting. But then there was one small caveat. They said, but that's not going to matter for a while. Everyone's kind of on the same level, and we may look into it later.
Right.
So there may be an opportunity to
right.
take
So they
later.
understand that because they have this sort of pass burning system where you burn your pass and now your wallet becomes whitelisted for the game, basically. They're understanding that those people who have done that burn already but then might want to upgrade later on, that's an issue and they're going to address it. But for now, it's not a problem for this. So basically, they're telling themselves that they've got a timer to try to address this issue before it becomes
And I
relevant.
talked to...
which it sounds like it's a year for that or something like that.
sounds like
is what I would remember them saying.
And there's a gentleman that we play with in our server, actually, as well, who you've played with a few times. I can't remember his name right now. Karts?
Yeah, he's a good kid.
Yeah, but he was telling me, he's like, I got the silver because, and I kind of talking a little bit about why did you do that? And he's like, well, I want the higher loot. I was like, well, it doesn't matter right now. And he's like, well, I expect the price to go quite a bit higher, so I'm going to buy it now and not have to worry about it later.
That's right.
And that kind of got me thinking that's a good point.
That is what he did. Yeah, he's like, let's get a silver pass and just expect it to have a better value later on.
And the jump from the Jade to the silver wasn't huge. I think at the time it was about 100 USD for Jade, 160 for the silver, but then the gold was like 500. So the jump from the silver to the gold was a lot more substantial.
and so I mean, we'll just see how that goes. But
Same.
at the end of the day, even if I only end up playing this game with a Jade Pass, I know that I'll be able to be functionally the same as somebody else. That's just my drop rates might not be necessarily as high for NFT items.
And of course, with our game, our game guild, how much we're enjoying it, we're gonna keep an eye on how that upgrade might be able to happen.
And if they address that thing in the near future, the issue of somebody wanting to upgrade their pass level or upgrade their rarity level, then we'll be on top of it.
And I mean, the game's been really popular even back in the bull run. It was like one of the top titles. It was very well known.
Yeah.
You know, I remember they had there was a thing that happened with their land sale where they did kind of 2 rounds, I believe. And I feel like the price is pretty decent right now for some of the
Well, if you consider what you're getting, and then you also consider the effort and time and sometimes the money that people put into traditional MMORPGs in the older space, like if you played World of Warcraft and had a successful career for 7 years, and that's 12 months a year, 12 times 7, or 12 times 6, let's say, to make it easier.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. No, it's 12 times. It's 72, and then 72 times like maybe $8 or $10. We're talking about like $700 that somebody might put on just subscription fees. Well, guess what? A lot of my friends when I was a kid used to illegally buy and sell World of Warcraft accounts for a lot more than $700 because they wanted the right stuff.
That's right.
Well, this is a game where the ability to buy and sell those sort of cosmetic things and those novelty things that people want is not going to be illegal. So when somebody quits World of Warcraft, or in this case, when somebody quits Big Time, they can sell all their really cool limited edition stuff and all of their furniture from inside of their space to somebody else before they quit. And it's not against their terms of service.
I know. I love that.
You know what I mean?
That's the best
and that's
part
just
about
like an
this.
intrinsic change, but it's not a huge thing. But it is really, really, really going to revolutionize this game.
It will. And that's kind of why, as a game guild, not financial advice to anyone watching, of course, as always, but as a game guild, we've got our eye on a lot of those spaces right now.
Well,
Because
the last thing I wanted to say is that they have their what we call vault technology.
Okay.
And the vault technology
Yes, this is great to talk about.
is kind of like their process for onboarding people. When somebody makes an account in big time, a crypto wallet kind of just gets made, and it just sits there, and it's there to be the inventory for many of the NFT items or spaces or things that people might find inside the game. And if you just wanted to remain there and not, if you're not an NFT person, but you want to play the game, so to speak, you buy the pass one time. It probably costs you less than it would cost you to play the game on a subscription basis for maybe 12 months, and you can play this game. And then when the global release happens, you won't even have to buy a pass. You'll just be able to play the game for free.
that's awesome.
But you'll have this wallet sitting in the background, and so if you do accrue any of this cool stuff, then later on you can go, okay, well, it's finally time for me to quit the game and I have all this cool stuff. How do I get it off of my wallet? Because even if you're not a crypto person, you'll be thinking about that by the time it's time for you to quit.
That's right. And it's like easy onboarding.
Yeah, so it's basically exactly that, easy onboarding. And the way that you're onboarding somebody is kind of like by giving them value over time when they're not in some place where they're not expecting. Like you play MMORPG just to play it as a game, you're not really expecting that your cosmetics are going to be worth money later if you're not expecting that. You know what I mean? So if you're like choosing, basically if you're a person who chooses not to participate in crypto, but you play the game, inevitably you will be exposed to cosmetics, and inevitably later on, you're going to figure out what you want to do with them, whether it's just leave them there or try to sell them to
Plus,
somebody.
if you know they're worth a certain value, let's say $100, you're going to figure out that process.
That's exactly
Because
right.
you're gonna
Just
wanna
like
cash
somebody somebody in my high school days might have figured out what the value is of their World of Warcraft account to try to sell it.
That's
The
right.
point is that now that vault technology is there to just do that all in the background for you, and then when you want to do that stuff later on, if you want to change it to a different wallet or something like that, put it on OpenSea, then that's there. It's got its address. You've got your address. You can do that stuff. You can figure it out. But they do it all for you, and it's all invisible. And if you don't want to worry about it, you don't have to. And if you do want to worry about it, it is safe. And that's why I like it.
Yeah, me too. I thought it was really clever, the vault. And one thing I noticed too, you can even send funds to that wallet address that's been created.
That's
and now
right.
you can use those funds
It's a
to purchase
real
on the
wallet. Yeah,
marketplace.
it's a real wallet.
Yeah, it was really great. Well, it's been really awesome chatting with you about this. I know we're having a ton of fun playing. We've still got a ways to go before we're max level. A lot of classes to
Well,
level
max
up.
level a couple of times because,
Right?
man, yeah,
So
I want to
many
do at least
classes.
one class and then one off class just to start.
Yes,
and then
that's
get the
what
rest
I'm
of the
thinking,
guild
too.
sort of coming up with their main class. You know what I mean? We'll start forming party
I've got the
structures.
Time Warrior, I've got the Fixer, and
Yeah.
I'm going to kind of focus on those two.
Once we get to those raids, we'll see just how many people we can fit
Yeah.
in one raid,
But
and then organize them.
Make sure you guys come in the Discord if you want to play with us or jump in a party. You're welcome. You can see us in the voice chat when we're playing, and
Yeah.
it was really nice. That
We
you
love
guys,
big time. Come
Yeah.
play with us. We love you guys.
So much fun. Thanks so much for joining us today, guys, and until next time, cheers.